Personal and professional skills are increasingly important nowadays in education, but also for the entire life of students. But we are not learning them how to do it. And that's really something that's a problem at the moment, because we expect from students that they know how to use all that different kind of skills. And I think an app like we're building at the moment is really going to help them to be aware of those skills and give them guidelines about how they can develop their skills.
The Ace Yourself app actually has a predecessor, which is Ace Yourself Studies, and it is an application that was aimed for the use of Erasmus University students only, so that students get better prepared at being students.
And I think with the new app we are going beyond that, because we're also gonna learn them how to use personal skills, professional skills, like goal setting, coping, resilience, networking. So that's way broader than only the study skills per se.
Our plan is now to empower secondary education students to start training their soft skills earlier, before they make the transition towards higher education.
The app is going to help them really to make the transfer in the right way, because the transfer from secondary education to higher education is for a lot of students quite difficult.
So with this application, I want to prepare students early on to very much understand and forecast what they want to do with their lives.
Because then it opens all kind of possibilities for the future, and I really like helping students to do that. And I think the app is a great way to help those students building the expertise they need.
Hello everybody. I didn't do anything yet, so wait and see, wait and see. Thanks to this wonderful introduction by my two colleagues Pablo and Rowan, probably familiar to a lot of you, it's a very easy job for me to give a short introduction to the Ace Yourself project. Well, now my face is going to appear very, very big on this slide, so maybe just focus on me. My name is Martine Baars, and I'm an assistant professor at the Department of Psychology, and I'm a senior researcher at ErasmusX. And today I want to talk about the Ace Yourself project. And I'm going to do that by talking a little bit about the background, about the team who's working on it, and how we're actually developing the project, because we're at the early stages. And of course, to show you a little bit about what's next. So about the background, in the video it was already nicely explained. There already was an app about study skills. Maybe you know the app, the Ace Yourself Study app, which we actually developed in 2017, 2018, thanks to the Leiden Delft Erasmus Center of Education and Learning, and thanks to Erasmus University and the Community for Learning and Innovation. And this app is still being used, and is being used to support students in their self-study sessions, supporting them by using effective study strategies, ways to log their study sessions, and to help them really guide the whole process. But there's also a network. And this network is made up of high schools and higher education institutes from around the Rotterdam area. And they are working on what skills do students need to have a more smooth transition into higher education. And these two facts combined led us to come up with this project and see whether we could improve the Ace Yourself Study app to actually help the network to get an application that supports skill development in a much broader way. So it's about using what we already know and what we already developed, but definitely also about really doing it differently. For example, it's about personal, social, and study skills, like Rowan already mentioned in the video, which is a lot broader than just study skills. And it's also really to support high school students when going towards the transition into higher education, but also helping our first-year students at university or applied universities to do better during their studies and outside of that. So the audience, I kind of already mentioned that, of course, but the audience we're actually working with right now in our user research and scientific research are high school students in their third, fourth, and fifth, and sometimes even their sixth year of the levels that prepare for higher education. In Dutch, that's HAVO and VWO. And of course, higher education, our own first-year students, but also first-year students in applied universities across Rotterdam. And we're working with a great team to get this minimal viable product, to get a first idea of what the application should look like. And this team's big. It's really made up of many different partners. It's, of course, our wonderful team at ErasmusX, and their names are all on the slide. But it's also partners that we need at Erasmus University to get this whole project going and to make it great. And a way to do that is to work with task forces. And in these task forces, there are all kinds of internal and external stakeholders. We're doing the work together. You can see the task forces here on the slide, but I'll quickly walk you through them as well. We're developing the project in these different task forces. So the structure is that we are working to find a good way to have this app fit our goals and our strategies. And then we want to discover and define what we need. And this is what we've been doing in the last couple of months, and you'll see that in the task forces as well. And then, of course, it's about developing the application and moving on and investigating whether it's actually working and whether we can deliver what our goal was, to get an application to support those personal, social, and study skills for both high school and higher education students. We're here, just like I mentioned. And, well, I would say the next half of this year, we're going to move into development and delivery. So those task forces. We have a design task force. And this task force is really aimed at defining what type of users, or what type of product we should have for our users. So I already mentioned user research. It's really important. The design task force really needs that. We also have a task force that's working on the user research. And they've been talking to high school students, higher education students, and their teachers to find out what do they need. You can see on the slide an example of a big analysis of a lot of data that was collected in interviews with all these stakeholders. We also have a tech development task force. And this is really important to get the right technical background for the application. And for example, they have been working on the user authentication and data flows. Let's say the backbone of the whole application. We also have a content development task force. This is really about those skills I mentioned. So we want to support personal, social, and study skills, but how do we do that? What content do we need to deliver? And we also have a research task force. I mentioned user research, but we also have scientific research. Research to find out how should we create an application to support skill development, but also research to find out if what we have built, let's start with the minimal viable product, if that actually works for the groups of users we're envisioning. There's also the implementation task force, because it's really important, whatever we develop, that the implementation is done right as well. And also in this task force, there's many different stakeholders to look at what works, for example, at our university and what would work at a high school context. So they've been looking at ecosystem maps, and they're still waiting, of course, for us to progress on the design and development of the app to do more, but it's definitely good to have this task force. So on the timeline, I just already showed you that we kind of finished the define and discover phase, and we're going towards development and deliver. And here you can see how that is across our timeline. I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but it's important to know that we're actually starting with conceptualizing the application itself, and I'm hoping to be able to show you more next time. So what's next? Well, we're still at the beginning stages, so there's a lot to do still. Some pointers I want to show you here is that we're definitely going to work on the research. So scientific research has started out with finding out the importance of the different skills we're using for the different stakeholders. But we're also working on the user research and translating that into the development of the application. And also it's really important to set up the right tech environment. And the full team of developers should be ready to start building the app by July, so it's a really exciting time. We're working on the content as well. We really need to find out how to best present the content in the application in a way that it works for our stakeholders. And of course, like I said, implementation is a huge point of interest. So that's also something that is next. But for now, up to the next speaker.